Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This podcast is a very unique and very interesting subject. It's really going to open your eyes. We call it How to Diagnose Your Own Health at Home Without Lab Tests. This can really help improve your health and your family's health if you develop these skills, which of course can take years, if not decades. But even the simple things that I teach you today, you will find could help you to catch or identify health problems in their early stage. You have to understand the medical community, they're looking at your lab results. And by the time your bilirubin, your AST, and your these inflammatory markers, they're out of range, or even your cholesterol, it's already a seriously progressed problem. But there's plenty of signs and symptoms, as they're called in Ayurveda, to give you an idea that these health problems are progressing. In fact, in Ayurveda, they have 6 levels, 6 stages of every disease. Every disease has a pathology. It starts, it develops, it goes along, and then only the on the fourth one you can see it. So there's 3 early level signs and symptoms that you would have to know and study what these are to know that the pathology is there, and soon it's going to manifest into an obvious health problem. The medical world can't even know that it exists until it gets to the 5th level. That means the disease or the imbalance has manifested and it's clear as day. That's stage 5. And stage 6 is it's just gotten worse, and now it started to destroy tissue. But there's 4 stages prior to that, and they have all the little clues and signs are right in there. And that's how Ayurveda doctors can diagnose you better than anyone else. And if you look at naturopaths, they do a lot of lab work, a lot more lab work than your average MD. So they're a little dependent on the lab work. They do iridology and they have some basic diagnostic skills, but functional doctors and naturopaths tend to heavily rely on lab results, and they do a lot more testing than your MD. So they are obviously better than your MD, and that's why people go to them. The MD in the medical community, they are doing minimal testing. Unless you got really great insurance, they may do a little bit more testing in your case. But the medical doctors have 0 training in diagnosis. They only can look at your lab work, which is why so many people have major health problems, can't sleep, can't go to the toilet, have no energy. They feel fatigued, they've got skin problems, etc. And the doctor's just looking at the lab work and everything looks fine. Because they're really, by the time it's showing up at that level, it's at a advanced stage, or stage, the 5th stage in the pathology of development. So, and they, of course, they have to have it advanced before they can give you a medication, which is their only treatment, medication, surgery. So they're not interested in all in the early stages. If they do have indications that your numbers or indicators are a little on the high side, but they're not quite out of range, they just tell you, come back in 6 months, I want to test it again. So they know it's getting worse, but they can't issue the medication until you're out of range. So they just tell you to come back in 6 months, and then it's out of range. Then they can give you the medication. So I would really call that almost no diagnostic skills at all for your average medical doctor. Because he's got to really be like, hit him in the face and be quite obvious before they're able to, with a lot of, pain and things going on, or a tumor, or, something they can see with a colonoscopy, or something that visual, kind of a linear thing, something that proof that they can see. They can't read the signs and symptoms. So this is one problem with our healthcare system is, the medical community is just letting everything progress along until it's serious. And then it's, more difficult for even a professional like myself to treat, and would have always been easier to treat at an earlier stage. So in fact, diagnosis is everything in Ayurveda, everything. You have to be a very good herbalist, because the herbs are the tools, the weapons, what we're using to reverse the condition or improve the organ function, liver, kidneys, or system function like circulatory system, cardiovascular system, nervous system. We don't treat medical conditions. We treat systems and organs. And all the signs and symptoms are coming from your organs and your systems, because that's all there really is organs, systems, and tissue. Blood, muscle. Muscle isn't per se a system, but it is tissue. There's tissue there. Fat is a tissue. Muscle is a tissue. And then there's systems like cardiovascular system, and then there's all the different organs. So that's an Ayurveda of your diagnosing and understanding all the 7 tissue in the body. 13 to 6 women have extra few systems than men, but the essential systems are 13. And then you got the organs, which help make up these systems. So that's what we're diagnosing. We're not diagnosing a medical condition. By the time it's a medical condition, the pathology is already advanced, and your medical doctor can identify it. But then it's, I wouldn't say always too late, but it's in the late stage, and that's what you want to avoid. So no matter how many herbs you have or how good of an herbalist you are, if you can't diagnose, you cannot be successful. And we can see this even because Herbman Teas, as we know, herbmanteas.com has 180 of my herbal products are available online. But guess what? Even though all the products are there and some of the people even know their herbs, they still can't diagnose what is their health problem. So they don't know which formula to pick. So it doesn't matter how many herbs you have, how good of an herbalist you are. If you can't diagnose, you cannot be successful or be a heavy hitter like me and have high success rate in the 90s. When you're dealing in 90% success rate in all of your cases, that's due to your diagnostic skills, because I can treat the same condition multiple ways. I can treat it by changing the diet. I could give you Indian herbs. I can give you Western herbs. I could give you Chinese herbs. It doesn't really matter what herbs are my method. The point is I'm able to diagnose the organ or the system that's starting to have an imbalance, whether it's a doshic imbalance or whether it's a depletion or inflammation. And then I can pick different ways to treat that condition. And most people will have multiple issues from organs, systems, and tissues that are imbalanced and need treatment. That's why you're never going to get one herb or one formula for me for most health conditions, because most health conditions are involving multiple organs, at least one or maybe 2 systems, and multiple tissue. And in Ayurveda, we have to treat all those organs, all those tissue, and all those systems. So you could get multiple formulas and people don't know what's going on. How come I got 5 formulas for one condition? Because I'm not treating your health condition. I'm treating the systems and the organs. So this is very important to understand. And of course, a lot of people without diagnostic skills, amateurs, they're misdiagnosing all the time. Almost all my clients are misdiagnosing. I'll give you a example. For example, people saying, "Oh, I have candida. I've been trying to get rid of it forever." They even go to Herbman Teas and they buy the candida tea, candida formula but then when they do an appointment, I say, "Let me see your tongue." See the tongue? Okay. Nope, you don't have candida. Over. Finished. In 10 seconds, I can tell if they have candida or not. And they've been treating it for a year. And another thing, they do parasites too. Same thing. I got parasites. They'll even buy my parasite herbs. It's not that people don't have parasites. It's that if you can't diagnose that you've really got it, then don't treat it. But people are guessing. They're reading things online. Oh, that sounds like me. I got parasites. Then they'll take parasite herbs or even buy my parasite herbs. And then all the problem and the health issue is still there. Then they end up doing an appointment. And then we realize you never had parasites in the first place. So, misdiagnosis, self-misdiagnosis is a major problem. We would call it, from a professional point of view, we'd call it guessing. And if I'm going to treat you, I can't be guessing. I mean, you can't go to a car mechanic and have him guessing. He could be wrong every once in a while, but he ain't guessing. He's still, diagnosing the engine, listening to the sound, looking at the exhaust, looking at the smoke, and he's got certain diagnostic skills. But a good mechanic can just listen to the car and know a lot. And well, nobody, other people wouldn't know just by listening to the engine, listening for knocking, listening for the explosion, listening for at high rev, low rev, all these type of things. They have the experience. So diagnosing is everything, and it's probably a more important skill than even herbalism. And unfortunately, most people don't study diagnostics enough. The Indian Ayurveda is the master of diagnostics, and the Chinese Westerners and naturopath tend not to study it as much and rely more on lab work, as I mentioned. But today we're going to cover like common signs and symptoms that you can see quickly in yourself, your children, or other people to help you understand the state of your body. Now, of course, in Ayurveda, we have many tools for diagnosis. A face, for example, every wrinkle on your body has a meaning. And, where those wrinkles are in your body can give you clues to what's happening inside the body. So the skin, the wrinkles, and even the color of the face, and whether, pale, you can be anemic, red, you could have inflammation, rosy cheeks, rosy red ears can also be a sign of high blood pressure. And of course, one of the best sources of diagnostics in both Indian and Chinese medicine is the tongue. Lots of information from the tongue. And of course, the pulse is the king of diagnostics, and it does take years to learn pulse reading. But if a good Ayurveda doctor has these skills, and I think it's one reason I'm a good Ayurvedic doctor, and even when I'm in India, there's Indians that know herbs and formulas I don't know, but they catch on to my diagnostic skills, and they know. They'll give more credit to a guy with good diagnostic skills than a guy who just knows a lot of herbal products but doesn't have the good diagnostics, because they know if you've got good diagnostic skills, you're going to have a very high success rate. And Indian doctors, they're studying reading the tongue, reading the wrinkles on the face, looking at the eyes, like kind of like a form of iridology, looking at the skin, feeling the the pulse, and touching the body, palating the different organs in the body. It's a very extensive system. So we're going to talk about how to quickly diagnose your digestion, your colon, your liver, your circulation, your cardiovascular system, your nervous system, and even your kidneys. So this whole podcast, we're not going to talk about treatments. We're going to just talk about signs and symptoms that give you an indicator there's an issue with this organ or system in your body. This is a massive subject, and any one of these, like tongue diagnosis, I could do a 2-week course on. So it's huge. So we're just letting you know that these are existing, and you could study them on your own. So first, let's start with digestion. Easiest way to understand a person's digestion is look at the tongue. So Ayurvedic doctors always want to see the tongue right off the bat. Sometimes they're looking at the tongue before they start to feel the pulse because it's quick. And on the tongue, you can get plenty of information. If you got a heavy film, like a white film on the tongue, that's we call ama, toxins. But if it's heavy and it's white and even got a yellow tint to it, that's the candida. If there's yellow on it, that's more fungal and yeasty than even candida. You look at how much white and how much yellow there is. But if it just covers the whole tongue and it's thick white, that's the yeast overgrowth. You can call it SIBO or candida, yeast overgrowth. And then but I want to say before I continue, these diagnostic methods, you in Ayurveda, you have to find 3 indicators of the same issue to conclude. You can't just go and look at your tongue and say, okay, that's it. So if a person, and you need 2 more, but once you hit 3, that's it. You've diagnosed it. So a lot of times we look at the tongue and we feel the pulse, and then we maybe ask a few questions, and then we got our conclusion. And you should use different methods of diagnostics. And asking questions is one form. So if I saw that heavy film I would say, do you have toe fungus? Do you have vaginal yeast overgrowth? And they're going, yes, yes. Well, that's it. That's my second confirmation they have a type of SIBO or candida going. And then, of course, there's other indicators like foggy brain and things like that, and low appetite, not hungry in the morning. But see, the problem is people read about these things like foggy brain or low appetite, and they think, oh, I got it. I got candida. But they're not, when you're trained to do this, you can never go by just one indicator. In fact, in Ayurveda, there's three main sources, and that is touching, like the pulse, looking, like the skin and the tongue, and asking. And you should do one of each. And if they all are indicating the same thing, then that's your diagnosis. Now, in modern times, we can look at your lab work too. So I'm thinking, well, there's a liver issue. Then they got the lab work. And I look at the lab work. There's the high bilirubin. There's the high AST. So that's my second form of confirmation is their lab results. But just because if the lab results doesn't say anything, doesn't mean I'm not going to conclude there's not inflammation in the colon, inflammation in the body, liver issues or gallbladder issues, because I'm going to not rely just on the lab work. But if the lab work confirms or concurs with what my diagnosis is, then that's one of my three indicators that I'm on track. But I can mostly diagnose and come to almost all health conditions without any lab work, without any CT scans, without any colonoscopies. It's not necessary for an Ayurvedic doctor. And I'm telling people all the time they have health conditions, and they later go into the doctor and find out that, they did. And so because I do these little free introductory appointments, and I may tell somebody about a health problem, they may be a little skeptical, they don't believe me, then they call back 2-3 months later and book the appointment and say, you're right, my cholesterol was high, you're right, my blood pressure was high, you're right, I did have inflammation in the colon. But to me, it was obvious. But, people, of course, they want to go in and they want to check with a doctor. And unfortunately, I may say you have a problem and the doctor may not pick up on it for 1 or 2 years later. And then you come to me. This is also very common. Even my own existing clients, they do this all the time. I'm telling them I'm telling you have inflammation in the colon. No, it's all right. There's no pain. And, because now their bowels are moving. And they used to be constipated, and now they're having 3, maybe 4 bowel movements a day. I said, that's inflammation in the colon. And of course, I have other indicators, but the doctor didn't say anything. The colonoscopy didn't show up, anything. So they blow me off. And then 2 years later, they go, oh, the doctor did a colonoscopy and my colon's inflamed. Well, I was picking up on it early just by the simple fact that the person had a whole long history, their entire life of being constipated. And now they have 4 loose bowel movements a day. That's inflammation in the colon right there. It's almost conclusive. Obviously you look for other indicators. So digestion, back to the tongue. If you see little dents on the side of the tongue, that's malabsorption. That means that because the tongue is basically a muscle. And, when you have teeth indentations on the side, it means your muscles aren't absorbing the nutrients and they're becoming weak. And that's why they're becoming indented with the sides of by touching your teeth. So we look for those teeth marks, we say, on the tongue. We look at the film. How thick is it? If it's just at the back, like the front of the tongue is pretty pink, but the back is heavy, that's the colon. So that means I can tell people by looking at their tongue how many bowel movements they had at least that day. But if I see that heavy film in the back, but not in the front, because for candida, it's going to be covered the whole tongue because that's the yeast overgrowth, then that's has to do with the bowel movements. We'll just move on to colon. There's other indicators about digestion too by asking questions. Lack of appetite is a sign of poor digestion. Gas and bloating is a sign of poor digestion. Feeling heavy after meals is a sign of poor digestion, but nobody really knows those are signs of poor digestion. A lot of people are just at gas and bloating all the time, and they don't realize the whole problem is their digestion. It's, we tend to blame the food. Oh, it's the food. I can't eat this. I can't eat that. No, it's not the food. It's not the bread. It's your digestion. Everybody else is eating the bread. Your spouse is eating the bread. They're not having a problem. So the bread ain't poisonous, assuming you're having whole wheat organic bread. Of course, there are, poor quality foods that can even aggravate your digestion anymore. But people tend to not take responsibility for their own digestive problems and tend to blame the food. But that's another story. But that can be an indicator for me when the people say, oh, no, I can't eat that. I can't eat that. I can't eat that. To me, that just translates immediately. Poor digestion, weak digestion. And then I can see, oh, they're also constipated, got the heavy film on the back. And if you complete my form, you can see we ask a lot of questions about the stool, how many times you go a day. It should equal the amount of meals. You're having 3 meals a day. You're supposed to go 3 times a day. You're only going once a day. That's constipated. And you may not take it seriously, but there's been people that were rushed to the ER for constipation. And there's even been people that were only having 1 bowel movement a day their whole life, and they still had diverticulitis, so they thought it was normal. But, they're not trained. They're thinking their 1 bowel movement's normal. And they always give the excuse, but my whole life I always missed a day. My whole life I did only one time. It doesn't matter. I mean, you could say you had this car and the whole life it never started in the morning. That doesn't justify, the problem. It just means you lived with it instead of resolving it because you weren't even aware it was a problem. And that's, of course, the big problem with not having these skills. Is that the indicators are right there. For me, the indicators are there. You give me a 10-year-old child, I can find you a list of at least 4 or 5 health problems. You give me an adult, I'll find you 10 health problems. You give me an elderly person, even though they've been going to the doctor and they're taking medication and all their lab work is good, I can find 10, 15 problems because nobody's really looking at these problems. And many of them people just deny and don't even think they're health issues. Women are urinating at night. They think it's normal. The doctor can't treat it, but I'm treating it all the time because I diagnose what is the cause. A lot of times the cause is just inflammation in the bladder, and that makes you urinate at night. So you bring down inflammation in the body, you bring down inflammation in the bladder, and then they're not urinating at night. But everybody just ignores it, and they accept these health problems. You should never accept health problems. I mean, whether it's pain, or urinating at night or joint pain. It doesn't matter if you're 80, 90 years old. Pain is an inflammatory issue. You could have muscle pain. You could have joint pain. You should never just tolerate it. I mean, you have to realize there's an issue going on, and it's fully treatable, and it has a lot to do with inflammation, and 99% of the time you're creating the problem. You just don't know it, but that's another story. So let's go back to the colon and diagnosing your stools and your children and anybody else in your life. How many bowel movements you have in a day? That's very important to ask your children. Sometimes parents don't even know this for their 5, 6, 7-year-old child until he's rushed into the ER and they found out he hadn't pooped for 5 days. And there's many people that have spent time in the ER. I've had clients who ended up in the ER and ended up with big bills and with all this pain and even vomiting, and they found out it was just constipation. They just gave him a stool softener and sent him out the door, and then a big bill. And so you got to really take the bowel digestion and bowel movements very serious. And remember, no appetite is a digestive problem. Not able to eat a lot of foods is a digestive problem. And then, of course, there's a lot of information we can get from the stool. If the stool is sinking, not good, poor digestion. If the stool is stinking bad, like somebody walks in the bathroom after you and says, oh my God, what died in here? Open the window. Well, that's a problem in your colon. I mean, it never smells good, but when it really smells bad, it's not good. So I ask these questions on my self-assessment form. Do you have really bad, stinky stools? Are they sinking to the bottom? Are they dark, like blackish? Not good. Now, if they're really dark, it can be blood mixing in there. That could be an issue too. But if they're just black without the blood, then, that's also not good. Sinking, stinking, and hard is not good. Hard, dry stools, oh, no, that's going to lead to hemorrhoids, diverticuli, and even fistula, where the rectum tears when you have dry, hard stools. And you're creating the problem by eating too much dry, hard food. But if you're diagnosing somebody else, first you have to diagnose the problem. Then you can go in and find out what they're eating. And then once you ask what they're eating in their lifestyle, like snacking on nuts all day long, we'll give you dry, hard stools. And then you get hemorrhoids and, fistulas and even, other issues related to having these dry, hard stools for so long, like diverticuli. So you catch them in an early stage by keeping your bowels moving all the time, either with changing of your diet, changing with your eating habits. And of course, the quick and fast way is just take the herbs. So the next area we want to look at is the liver. Mostly we can see and understand liver issues. There's indicators on the face, wrinkles on the forehead area, in between the eyebrows. You can feel it very clearly, different types of liver conditions in the pulse. And of course, fortunately, through lab work, we can see a lot of information about the liver, LDL, HDL, total cholesterol, bilirubin, ASTs, many indicators there, but they're not conclusive. But they can give you information. If already I suspect liver issues, then I tell me your blood work, and then the blood work is like bilirubin's high, then that concludes it for me. Because I did my diagnosis. Now the blood work concludes it. Fine. I only use the blood work to conclude it if they have it. If they don't have it, I just have to come to a conclusion myself. But also we can look at the skin, rashes, hives, itchy. This is all have to do with the liver. Even allergies, a lot of times the liver. The real textbook signs of liver problem are like sensitivity to smells, like, when I perfumes and smoke, it really bothers me. That's liver toxicity. I can't have oily foods, fried foods. I feel nauseated. That's like a fatty liver, future gallbladder problems, type of issues. So what they do is they just stop eating the oily fried foods, but it didn't fix the problem. The liver is still fatty. I always give the example. If you're putting bad gas in your car, you go into a cheap gas station, you're buying bad gas, and then it clogs up your fuel filter, and then somebody tells you, hey, your fuel filter's clogged. That's why your car's not running good. That's why you can't start it in the morning. So so now you go off to a nice gas station, you buy the better gas, you're more careful, and you're putting in good gas. Great. But you didn't fix the fuel filter. It's still clogged. You didn't get rid of the issue. You just not continuing to make it worse. So that's the thing with the liver. I mean, once you've done the damage through recreational drugs will damage the liver over time. All pharmaceutical drugs damage the liver over time and the kidneys. Alcohol, we know, is damaging the liver. Even just junk food, chemicals, all these things. The liver's taking the burden. Just living in a polluted area and then inhaling all this pollution is burdening the liver. So you could have all these different causes. Those are the various causes. You got to figure out the cause next. First, we have to diagnose what the issue is, or what type of, whether we have vata, pitta, or kapha in the liver, whether we have inflammatory liver, cirrhosis of the liver, or fatty liver. There's many different liver conditions. That has to be diagnosed first. Then I can investigate and figure out what's causing it. And it's the people, they're the wrong foods, and the wrong diet, and the chemicals, the toxicity, or the past. It could have been a heavy drinker 20 years ago, and they still got the liver problem. It doesn't just like go away because you stop drinking. The liver, of course, is a very regenerative organ. So it is one that can improve over time on its own, but very slowly. But the herbs can do it very quickly. See, herbs can regenerate the liver. And if you have cirrhosis of the liver, I'm going to give you certain herbs. If you have fatty liver, I'm going to give you different herbs. If you have gallbladder stone plus fatty liver and high cholesterol, I'm going to give you different herbs. If you have a lot of body heat and rashes and skin problems and inflammatory conditions in the skin in particular, I'm going to give you different herbs for the liver. So just because I know there's an issue with the liver, or your bilirubin's high, your AST's high, doesn't mean I'm just going to give you the same old liver tea for everything. In fact, if you go to Herb Man Teas, you can see I got a lot of different liver formulas, a lot of different colon formulas. So, that's another, very important point about diagnosis. You can't just say, oh, I'm constipated, let me just take some Sennar, some rhubarb, or buy some magnesium, your treatment may be completely flawed because you really didn't diagnose it down to why you were constipated. And there's sometimes I can't give strong herbs because of other factors. So I have many, many colon formulas. And that's the deeper diagnosis, breaking it down even further. In Ayurveda, of course, we have the doshic imbalances. So we look at any organ, liver or colon. It's got to have a vata imbalance, pitta imbalance, or kapha imbalance, or vata pitta imbalance, or kapha vata imbalance, or all three doshas can be imbalanced, say, in the case of a tumor or cancer. And then, of course, you have to know how to treat these different imbalances in this organ or system. You can see why diagnosis is first, not treatment. And anybody, that's why all of the online people are, let's not call them frauds, let's call them amateurs, because you can go online and watch somebody online and say, okay, if you got a liver problem, take milk thistle. If you've got a kidney problem, take nettle. You know, this is a simplistic view. I mean, you can have many types of kidney problems. You can have many types of liver problems. And it has to, they may be correct. You have a liver issue, but until you're able to break it down into a category, which Ayurveda can do, then that will determine the actual treatment and the herbs. And no herbalist is using one herb anyway. They're going to make a formula. And sometimes people's issue on their liver or kidney or bladder or cardiovascular system is kind of complex. It's like there's multiple issues going on here. It's inflamed and it's fatty and it's, all the lab work is high and the doctor's saying it's got cirrhosis. Plus, so then I may have to just make a custom formula because I'm trying to treat multiple issues with the same organ. It's easier for me if you just have one issue with that liver, like fatty or inflamed or cirrhosis or hepatitis. This just or infection in the liver. As long as that's the only issue, then you're going to just get one formula for that problem. But very often people have multiple issues or imbalances with one organ. Then I have to combine herbs together, make custom formulas for them. Sometimes I'll take two different formulas for two different conditions and combine them together and give it to them. So now we move on to like circulation. Well, circulation is easy to diagnose. You should feel a person's forehead, then you feel their hands, then you feel their feet. If you got cold feet and your body is not cold, then you have a circulation problem. All you can do, you can also look at varicose veins, spider veins. This is all circulation problem. If you stand up and you get dizzy easy, it can be thin blood and also circulation problem. Because most of these symptoms, they can also mean other things. So you can never rely just because the person has cold feet doesn't mean that 100%, it's a cardiovascular system. I mean, you're more than likely, but it could be more complex than that. But it's one indicator. So circulation should always check out because, circulation is the blood and that's bringing all the nutrients to every organ in the body. For example, a lot of people with neuropathy, they're going, give me herbs for neuropathy. You treated my cousin. He had neuropathy pain and you gave him herbs. Just give me those. And now I'd say your feet are cold. You have a circulation problem and that's making your neuropathy. Your cousin, he had diabetic neuropathy from, blood sugar. That was so different. The cause was different. In this guy's case, it could just be a poor circulation. And, the blood's not getting down there to the nervous system. And you start to get these signs and symptoms like tingling and numbness. But the guy's not diabetic. It's the circulation. So you can have symptoms like tingling, numbness, pain on your feet, and it could be different causes too. So cause is a whole nother subject. And then there's cardiovascular conditions. You can have many types of cardiovascular conditions. If there's blockages in the cardiovascular system, you're going to get more chest pain, and diastolic numbers are going to stay relatively high. Systolic numbers also could be high, and they're not going to go up and down because there's a blockage. It's not going to drop at all. So looking at the blood pressure over a period of time can give you a lot of information. And of course, a good Ayurvedic doctor, he can just feel your blood pressure just from your pulse, even just right from your touching other places on the body where he can feel the pulse. He can determine it, what the type of blood pressure it is. Now, if your high blood pressure is due to your nervous system, then it's going to go up and down, up and down. When you're home relaxed, it's down. When you go see the doctor, you get the white coat syndrome, you start panicking, and then the blood pressure goes up. The doctor measures your blood pressure. Every time you go see him, your blood pressure is high, so he gives you blood pressure meds. But the whole problem, the whole cause of your blood pressure in that case was the doctor. He is the cause. And when you don't see him, you don't have high blood pressure. So really, that's related to the nervous system. It's the nervous system. You panic, you worry, somebody, your ex calls you on the phone and your blood pressure goes up. So it's going up and down, up and down. That's the nervous system. And then, of course, there's still other types of blood pressure causes and types in Ayurveda. Kapha 1 is the blockage. Vata 1 is the nervous system. Pitta 1, usually that's the most dangerous. That's where you have the high peaking numbers that go really high, like 180, 200. And that person, their ears will become red. That's a sign of high blood pressure. Their face can become red. You can get bloodshot eyes. This is a dangerous type of blood pressure. And a lot of times these people will have joint pain and inflammation. So this can be inflammation of the arteries. So just you can't just say, oh, what herbs do I take for my blood pressure? No, it needs that. People are asking me this all the time. And I'm saying, how do I know? I have to diagnose it and find out what type of blood pressure you have. And a lot of times I need information. I need the systolic and the diastolic numbers over time. And then I need to ask questions. And then I need to see you. Like people say, oh, let's do it on the phone. No, I'm not doing appointments on the phone. I need to see you because when I see you, I need to see not just the tongue. I'm looking at the face. I'm looking at the skin color. I'm looking at the eyes. And, when you do this long enough, you don't even think. I just see it. Oh, this guy's got high blood pressure. In fact, I got pulled over by a police officer and I said, sir, I think maybe you have high blood pressure. And he changed the subject. Guess what? He forgot about giving me a ticket. And he said, really? How do you know that? And I go, well, I'm an herbal doctor and I'm diagnosed. And, because of your bright red ears there, they're really red. And you've got these bloodshot eyes. And he goes, well, yeah, I do get my bloodshot eyes. You got high blood pressure, sir. You should really get that checked. He said, thank you very much. And didn't even give me you have a good day and gave me back my driver's license. I think I was going to go swing by and get his blood pressure. I said, you just go by the pharmacist and, get the cuff and start measuring your blood pressure. And your type of job, I'm sure you got stress and pressure, and that's probably not helping. And he said, thank you very much. So, I can look at people and tell if you have diabetes by looking at the skin. A great trick to know if you have diabetes if you don't go in and get the test. Now, of course, you can get the test and just urinate and on your finger in the morning and taste it. If it's sweet, you have high blood sugar. It's a piece of cake. Now, the old days, the ancients used to have like a box with ants in it. Can you believe it? And they would have the person urinate, I think, in a cup, and they would pour some in the box with the ants, just a little bit, and they'd watch the ants. If the ants go over and start eating it, you got sugar in your blood. They did this thousands of years ago. So, in fact, I saw my horse. I saw where he urinated one time, and I saw all these ants on it. I go, uh-oh, that's not good. And then I realized, I think I'm giving him too many carrots. So I cut back on his carrot consumption. And now I got to get a new sample of that urine. I got to watch him, and then I go and look, and then I got to, I'm not going to taste it, but I've got to see if the ants show up or not again. So that's another one. But if we talk about kidneys, you get a lot of information from the kidneys. If if it's too dark, like a dark chocolatey level, that's not good in the kidneys. We're talking about urine analysis. That can be blood. If there's any even little pink spots in there at all, that's blood. You could have a blood clot in the kidneys. You could have a tumor in your kidneys. That's not a good sign. And if you got a blue tint to it, that's like bacteria or yeast. And if it's really dark red but not bloody, that's also could be kidney problems, even disease like malaria. If it's dark yellowish, that can be liver issues, dehydration. These things aren't conclusive, but there's other ways to determine dehydration. Just the mouth. If the mouth is dry, they're dehydrated because that's one part of the body that should never be dry. So you already see the dry skin, you already see the dry mouth. You can pull on the skin and it has no elasticity. Then you ask them, what about your urine? What color is it? Oh, it's yellow, dark yellow, like your shirt. That's it. They're dehydrated. So you wait till you get 3 indicators. Then you make a conclusion. Foamy urine, also not a good sign. Like I always, when I urinate, I'm always looking down, and I do taste my urine like once a month to make sure it's not sweet. And it's actually a little salty sometimes. Sometimes I think, God, maybe I'm having too much salt because I could taste it in my urine, a little salty taste. But if you're urinating in the toilet and you see a lot of bubbles, that's not a good time. That could be kidney issues, could be even urinary tract infection, or it could just be a high consumption of protein. And this is very common. Meat eaters, protein powders, and then they get bubbly urine. And that, of course, creates uric acid, and that eventually leads to kidney problems. So you got, once you see the bubbles, generally I want to cut down the protein. And people in America, they're obsessed with protein. They're having protein steaks and hamburgers and protein powders. Even people who are vegetarian, taking a lot of protein powders, protein bars, protein this. And so you easily can get people with excess protein. But then I want to see the kidney numbers. When I see the bubbles, I ask about the diet, or they tell me about the bubbles. And then I want to see the creatine levels, EGFR levels, BUN levels. And if those are out of range, plus the bubbles, okay, we got kidney problems here. So, that's you can get a lot of information from the kidneys. And if it's like milky, like got a milky white creamy look to it, this can be some types of allergies, kidney stones. And of course, you used to also have people in the past urinate in a glass jar, let it sit for a little while, and then if there's a little sand on the bottom, oh, you're forming kidney stones already. You just haven't got to the pain. So anyway, you want a light pink color. You can get a lot of information from the urine. So the urine, the stool, the tongue, the eyes, these are all different tools. And nervous system, people don't think some of these conditions are their nervous system. They're not sleeping, they're having anxiety, they're having panic attacks, they're having tremors, they're having numbness, they're twitching in their eyes, their hands are trembling. That's all nervous system. So, and a lot of times people will have multiple nervous system issues at the same time. They think, oh, I have insomnia, I have Parkinson's, I have neuropathy. So they break it down in 3 categories. But we know that's all your nervous system. So then you got to look at what is the person doing to aggravate their nervous system. And one of the worst things you can ever do for your nervous system is coffee. So you get these people, they got tremors. I always like to do the joke when they have tremors and they're drinking coffee. I said, if you met somebody and their hand is shaking and trembling, do you think it's a good idea they're having coffee? Nope. Well, but nobody tells them that. So once you have a neurological issue, whether it's just insomnia, anxiety, twitching eyes, twitching, trembling, tingling, you got to cut back or eliminate the coffee and other things. Just like if you have liver issues, you got to kiss the alcohol goodbye. And if you have neurological issues, you got to kiss the coffee, even green tea goodbye. So, because that's only going to aggravate it. Now, of course, we have herbs for different type of neurological issues. We got sleeping herbs, we got relaxing herbs, we got neuropathy herbs, we got nerve pain herbs, all kinds of different herbal formulas for different type of neurological conditions. But if you look at these formulas, there's some herbs that are same in all of them, because you're still treating the nervous system. So I hope this gave you a good idea. It's just a massive subject. And if you go on to my website, Herbman Teas, you can see I have 180 products up there for sale. Probably 5, 6, 7 colon formulas. At least 4 different types of high blood pressure formulas. And sometimes people, they hear about me, they know I've got good herbs, I've treated their friend, they go to the website, and now they don't know which one to get. I go, well, that's why you do the appointment. So just because you have access to my herbs online doesn't mean that you're going to pick the right one, or you're going to remove the cause, what you're doing every day to cause the problem. But, simple issues. If you're sure you have candida, then you can go get the candida tea and things like that. If you're sure you're constipated, if you read about each of the colon herbs and read what I said it's for, then you could pick one of those and you can get rid of your constipation. But you may still not be removing the cause. You're snacking on nuts, your crackers, your chips, and on your weak digestion. So that's why it's always a holistic treatment. In fact, I had a woman recently, and she said she only wanted to do an appointment for her lips. And that's it. Her lips were painful, sensitive, tender. And it's not like I have some formula for painful lips. But anyway, after doing my diagnosis, I said, you have inflammatory bowel. And she really didn't even want to treat it. She said, I've got it under control. I've learned what not to eat. And I go, no, you didn't treat anything. You're just avoiding it. And it wasn't like too much resistance, but she was like, oh, she let me do it because I didn't have an herb for her lips. Her lips are muscle tissue. Her lips are inflamed and they're dry. So there's other inflammation in the body besides just her lips. She just didn't care about it. And that's her colon and her muscles. So I treated her colon. I treated her muscles. I hydrated her again, and the whole lip problem went away. And that's why a holistic treatment is so important. You can never just think, I only want to treat this and I don't care about my sleep. I don't care about my bowel movements. Just give me the herbs for my blood pressure. Well, it's not working like that. Your constipation could be causing your blood pressure. Your kidneys could be causing your blood pressure. Your nervous system could be causing your blood pressure. Your anger could be causing your blood pressure. Your diet could be causing your blood pressure. So don't be calling me on the phone and say, send me a bag of tea for my blood pressure. Now, you could go on my website, herbmanteas.com, and you can start buying products, but you're basically guessing. But, and you haven't removed the cause. I mean, it probably helped you. Many people thank me and say, oh, it's great. My blood pressure's down. And I'm like, wow. I mean, he must have done some other things right that I don't know about. So people are, and that's why I do sell them, because they are helping a lot of people. But still, you have to understand that these treatments need to be holistic. You can't just think in an isolated way that just let me treat this. And to be able to treat holistically, you have to know how to diagnose holistically. That's why it doesn't matter what your health condition is. I'm going to diagnose your digestion. I'm going to diagnose your colon. I'm going to diagnose your liver. I'm going to diagnose your cardiovascular system, your nervous system, your kidneys. I'm going to look at all these, and many of them could be related to your main issue that you have. You just don't know that. So, and that's why you're unable to treat yourself, even if you know what the health issue is, because you're not treating the other systems and the organs in the body that are affecting that. I'll throw in some more quickie diagnosis things here. Look at the gums. The gums are muscle. And if they're shrinking or receding gums, that's not enough protein in the diet, because the muscles are gums. And I do it with animals. Most of these cats and dogs are getting plenty of protein because they're eating meat. But if you see a red lines along their teeth mark on their gums, that's inflammation in the muscle. We also look at fingernails too. And if fingernails have deep ridges, that means they're a bone problem, particularly if they're splitting. That means they're brittle bones. You're probably not having enough oil or fat in the diet. And if they're really flexible and not firm, this is usually mineral deficiency. They have little white spots on the fingernails. It's also type of mineral deficiency. If they're really bright red and pink, particularly around the edges, that's inflammation in the muscles. So you can get a lot of information from the fingernails. And fortunately, even on Zoom, I can see people's fingernails. I can see people's tongues. I can feel people's eyes, even anemia. People go, I'm not sure if I'm anemic. I said, just roll your eyelid down, get close to the camera, and I'll tell them right then you're not anemic, or, oh yeah, you're anemic. I don't need the blood work. If you have the skills, you don't need the blood work. And if you go look at my testimonials, many people say my diagnostic skills are unbelievable. And I would say it's my strongest skill. You have to have good communication skills. You got to be communicative with people. You got to be a good investigative guy. It takes a lot of skills. And you have to have a lot of herbs. I have over 1,000 herbs and, decades of experience with herbs. But really, one of my best skills is my diagnostic ability. And that's why I can treat all these health conditions right on Zoom. with my questionnaire and your lab work. Diagnostic skills is everything to having a successful and accurate treatment. And most people are ignoring this. Don't be guessing. Diagnose. Don't guess. People tell me all the time they think they have this, they think they have this. I ignore that. It doesn't mean anything to me when a person says they think they have something. That's like pulling up at the car mechanic and you're saying, I think it's the spark plugs. I think it's this. He's like, he's not even listening to you. He just says, yes, ma'am, whatever. He's doing his diagnostics. He's not going to listen to the client's guess, and neither do I. I mean, we have to be polite. You don't know we're not listening, but we have to go through our diagnosis of diagnosing every system, asking questions, looking at the lab work, making conclusions. And they may be very different than what the customer expected, but they don't have the diagnostic skills. So it doesn't really matter what the customer expected. You can have anything in your head. But at the end of the day, these are the conclusion of my diagnostics is what I'm going to tell you, and then what I'm going to treat. And how I treat it, I could use herbs. I could change your lifestyle. I could give you Chinese herbs. I could give you Western herbs. I can give you Indian herbs. The treatment have a lot of variation. But what's important is you got the diagnosis right. And, and just to say it is quite possible that even the best diagnosis can be wrong. So if a person comes back in a follow-up and you still got that pain, then I'm not thinking the herbs are not the problem. Now, it was my diagnosis is the problem. I didn't diagnose the cause of the pain because I know the herbs work. The people think, it didn't work. Herbs didn't work. It wasn't the herbs. It was my misdiagnosis. And that's very common with pain because then I'm thinking, it could be autoimmune. So then I'll dig down on that. And then I discover this is autoimmune condition, which means I have to give different herbs now. And sometimes if you're my patient, I may even send the replacement herbs without cost because I'm accepting that I misdiagnosed your cause of your inflammation on the first appointment. So I often will just replace the herbs without cost, without charge, because I'm accepting that I misdiagnosed. And when you do the volume of people that I'm doing, thousands and thousands of people, yeah, okay, you misdiagnose sometimes, but I just have learned to accept it, change it, and move on. And not take it personally, and not to deny it. I just tell the client, "Oh no, okay, it's not the herbs. Don't worry, it's not the herbs. I think the cause is different, and this is my new diagnosis, and so I'm going to send you replacement herbs for that, no charge." And so that's how important diagnostics is. And some days my skills are better, like I'm just nailing it all day long, and other days, maybe my mood or my energy level or whatever, I'm just not as on. And then I can misdiagnose. But the better you get, the higher percentage you have after decades and decades of experience and thousands of patients, your diagnostic skills get better and better and better. And then you start getting in the 90%, 95% range. And if you don't have good diagnostic skills, you're going to be down there in the 20 and 30% range. And you see this a lot of times with naturopaths. They say, if you have this, take this. If you have this, take this. They're going to have a certain amount of success rate with that because they are right. Slippery elm is good for irritable bowel, or hawthorn berry is good for your blood pressure, et cetera, but they're not diagnosing it deeper. So they're only going to have a certain success rate of 20, 30%. A lot of naturopaths are just around the 50% success rate with their clients because the other 50% become my patients because they already went to a naturopath, gave them herbs and made a new problem or didn't fix their problem. So I diagnose it, and then I understand how the naturopath just gave out like a canned approach. So that's why following health advice and herbal remedies that you see online are not a good idea because online cannot diagnose you. It may not hurt you, but you have to accept you're guessing. And if anybody tells you, anytime you have blood pressure, take hawthorn leaf, hawthorn berry. Every time you have a kidney problems, take nettle. That's completely amateur because nobody can tell you by internet without diagnosing you. There's no diagnosis. You see, so many people are giving health advice with no diagnosis. How could you give anybody a herb or even anybody a diet without diagnosing them first? But that's what everybody's doing online. That's why I get calls daily. I mean, that's why it's very hard to reach me on the phone. I allow my staff to take the calls because people are going to try to get me to send them something for a health problem, which they know I can treat without an appointment. And if you do get a hold of me, I'm going to say, I don't know. But you treated my brother for that. Your case could be different. I need to diagnose your condition. I need to know what you're eating. I need to know your lifestyle. I need to know any other medications you're taking, et cetera, that I need to do my diagnosis. So then they do the appointment. But this is the big problem we have is nobody's diagnosing. They're guessing. Don't guess. Learn these skills yourself or do an appointment with somebody who's trained to diagnose your health problems. And I wish you all the best of health and happiness. And remember, start looking at your pee, start looking at your urine, start looking at your tongue, start, studying some of these subjects, but at least start observing your skin, your colon, your urine, your bowel movements, and when you're going to the toilet, don't just ignore these signs and symptoms. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope this helped you and educated you.